Good morning, Dr. Hickey, Mr. Gallagher, Mr. Patterson, faculty, and fellow students. Kira Cass once said, accepting help is its own kind of strength, and this is something I truly believe. The world we live in constantly tells us to not show weakness and to not let life's changes phase us. When we see everyone around us looking like they have it all figured out, it is hard for us to find the space where we feel like it's okay to open up. The truth is, everyone is struggling. No matter how happy and unaffected they look, everyone has their own stresses and worries inside. We all have our own challenges, and we all need kindness, respect, and support. Letting people in isn't an easy thing to do. It requires a level of emotional certainty that can feel like standing on the edge of a cliff, uncertain about the sturdiness of the ground beneath you. It requires you to be completely honest and unfiltered, and as hard as that is, it makes all the difference in the world. Growing up, I was never really the type of person who was open about my thoughts or feelings. I preferred to keep my emotions and opinions to myself, creating an internal world that I kept hidden from others. It wasn't that I didn't value relationships, but rather I had a hard time trusting with others with what seemed like the most personal parts of me. Sharing my feelings felt risky, like giving someone access to a part of myself that I wasn't sure they would understand or respect. It was a form of self-protection that was born from fear. If I kept everything inside, I could avoid the judgment and rejection of others. This guardedness became a part of who I was, a way of navigating the world that kept me emotionally distanced from others, even when I longed for a connection. The tendency to keep things to myself wasn't just about avoiding vulnerability. It became a way of managing the world around me. I wasn't one to express my struggles or even talk much about my hopes and dreams. To some, it may have seemed like I was distant or closed off, but in my mind, I was just protecting myself. Every time I thought of opening up, I was confronted with an inner voice that warned me of the potential hurt or disappointment. In many ways, this self-imposed silence became a defense mechanism. I convinced myself that by keeping things inside, I was protecting myself from the uncertainties of how others would react. For a long time, I struggled with anxiety, and it has often felt like a constant, invisible weight that is not easy to shake off. It wasn't just a fleeting worry, it was a persistent, overwhelming feeling that kept me on the edge, even when there didn't seem to be a clear reason for it. And my mind would spiral with thoughts of what things could go wrong, what people might think of me, or if I was saying or doing the right things. This internal turmoil created a barrier between me and the outside world, making it harder for me to reach out. I thought that if I would get judged, if I would open up to someone about my anxiety. The thought of exposing that vulnerability and letting people see how much I was struggling made me even more anxious. I had trust issues, and I felt that if I would open up, it would make my anxiety worse rather than better. But the truth was, the longer I stayed silent, the heavier the weight became and the more trapped I felt in my thoughts. The fear of opening up only fed into my anxiety, leaving me stuck in a cycle that felt impossible to break. This is anxiety for me. Anxiety has affected my life in a way I never expected. It started a small, consistent, underlying tension that gradually escalated until it began to affect everything: school, relationships, and simple everyday tasks. At first, I didn't understand what was happening, dismissing it as temporary worry or stress. But as it grew more persistent, I realized it wasn't just a passing phase. It was a constant presence that wasn't going to go away. This experience with anxiety is such a large part of my life that at first, it is what I wanted to talk about. But I realized that though it is a part of who I am, it is not what I want to define who I am. For the past year or so, my anxiety has been at its worst, as I've gone through some things that have affected me pretty deeply. I tried everything I could to relieve my anxiety without having to open up. While some seemed to work at the time, they never had a long-term resolution to my problem. As things got worse, I felt like I was going crazy. I still refused to open up, and things continued to move forward, getting worse. The last thing I wanted was for people to notice, so I put on an act so that people would just assume I was okay. I never felt truly connected to anyone. I always felt like a fake, and I hated myself for that. I wanted to have a genuine connection with someone, but my mind was just getting in the way. This is something that I didn't like about myself, and I truly wanted to fix, but I didn't know how. Then, one day, despite all I had to hide it, someone noticed, and I was shocked when during lunch we had a talk that lasted almost 2 hours. I ended up telling him everything. I was surprised with myself because I had never done anything like that before, but I felt like I could trust this person with this information, so I ended up sharing. It felt really good to get everything off my chest, and I no longer felt like a fake. My greatest fear and big reason I didn't open up was because I didn't want my loved ones to know, especially my parents. It's not that I don't love and have a good connection with them, it's that for some reason I am not comfortable being emotionally available to them, and that's okay. Maybe I would be ready to talk to them in the future, but for now, I wanted to talk to only one person. So I did, and for a few nights, I was able to sleep well, not worry as much, and I felt better about myself. In my mind, everything was going great until the Thursday after I opened up. I found out that my parents had to know because that's the best way to help and support me when I struggled, and that's something that is hard to hear even when it's true. I would rather them not hear this information from the school, so I asked if I could do it myself. A call from the school always feels worse than saying it yourself, so I decided to text my mom. After, it felt like forever waiting for a response from her. My body felt numb, I was feeling all kinds of emotions, and I was crying. When she responded, I could barely read it, as my vision was blurred from my tears and my ears were filled with the pounding noises of my heartbeat. Talking to your parents when you're scared or anxious can be really difficult, even when it's the best thing you can do. When I was told that the next step in the healing process was telling my parents, my first instinct was to say no, I can't, because I wasn't comfortable telling them these things. If I wanted them to know, I would have opened up to them first. It is always tough to open up to your parents about anything in your personal life, and it feels like they couldn't possibly understand or that they might be angry. But when it comes to mental health, it can feel especially overwhelming. You don't want them to feel guilty or afraid, and sometimes you just don't know how they'll react. Honestly, it is easier to talk to someone who isn't family because there is less at stake. When it's a friend, therapist, or even just a stranger, you can speak without the weight of years of family history or expectations hanging over you. You don't have to worry about them remembering everything you've said in the past or preconceived notions of who you should be. With family, there is this deeper layer of connection and concern that can make this conversation heavier. There is also the fear that they might take on the burden and feel responsible for fixing things, which can add more pressure. With someone outside the family, it can feel like you're just speaking your truth and without the added emotional complexities. It is not that I'm not close or love my parents, it's just that I've never really shared anything with them. But despite that, I knew that opening up to my parents was an important step, not just for them to understand me better, but for my healing. I had to push through the discomfort, knowing that this was the next step in taking care of myself. Opening up actually brought us closer. After that conversation, it felt like there was a shift in our relationship. Although it was rocky in the beginning, as we both were feeling a lot of emotions, it is now easier for me to talk to them and about other things, and that I didn't feel like I had to hide parts of myself anymore. I realized that being more vulnerable with them created a space for me where I could be more honest, and they were more understanding than I expected. I feel less alone in my mental health journey now that they know. Opening up was one of the best things I could have done for myself, as it changed my outlook on life and made me think more positively. I'm nowhere near the end of my healing process, and I still have a long way to go, but I am much happier than I was. I am constantly working better to be healthier for my friends, my family, and most importantly, myself. I learned that no matter who you are and what you're struggling with, you are not alone. There's someone out there who is willing to help, listen, and wants to help you. No matter how hard times get, just know that it's never too big of a problem or too late to reach out for help. I have two amazing friends, Allie and Mia, who have made efforts to make sure that I know no matter the time, they are always there to help me. It takes time and dedication, and I am far from the finish line, but I am already a lot better, and I can't wait to keep going. Thank you.